at the local level that helps local communities with things like road improvements, repairing potholes, synchronizing signals, bike and pedestrian pathways. And so we also together help at the local level. And so this all provides us a great foundation with a transportation system. However, we have a lot more to do together. There's still a lot of planning and development that we have to do to plan for future growth. So over the next 40 years, we are projected to have about 2.4 million people move into Los Angeles County. That's a lot of people, and that's a lot of planning for that growth. And we don't start that planning 30 years from now. We actually started today in laying even more of a foundation for us. And so expanding our transportation system takes on many forms. It's better highway projects, it's better connectivity, it's how do we provide easy rail bus connections, how do we improve active transportation, and I'll talk a little bit more about some other things. But it's really this combination of local and state funding, private funding, and federal funding that it's going to take to build out more of an integrated transportation system. And our CEO, Philip Washington, several years ago, he coined that as the three-legged financing stool. Because really it isn't going to be incumbent on any one of those areas, but all of those together that it's going to take to build out a better transportation system in the future. And so the plan that we are putting forth is that we are saying, here is our plan that can be funded by another half-cent of a sales tax increase, and that new half-cent tax would generate about $860 million a year. So this plan would be asking for an additional half-cent, but then also continuing our current half-cent tax that was passed by voters in 2008 that everybody knows as Measure R. So it's those two components that collectively would generate about $120 billion a year over a 40-year time frame. So this new half-cent that would begin in July of 2017 if it's passed by voters in November, and then the continuation of the current half-cent after it is set to expire, which right now is 2039. And all of this continuing until 2057. And so we're out, as Salita mentioned, on a roadshow, if you will, with the public, to educate the public about this plan and to also make sure that they provide us input. So we're in a public review and public input period. So as we're out there with the public, we want to help them understand what this means for them. And so what is a half-cent tax? That half-cent tax amounts to about 5 cents on a $10 purchase. And so to put that into context for people, that's about $25 a year out of pocket, in addition to what we already invest to make improvements across our county. So if you buy one coffee drink a week for a year, you're spending $260 a year. If you buy one fast food meal a week for a year, you're spending $420 a year. So what we're saying is for actually $24 a year, it's less than 25, it's $24 a year out of pocket. We can all together contribute in the transportation improvements that we're going to need to plan for the future growth that I mentioned. And of course this happens through many different ways. More transportation alternatives, better ways to connect through technology. That technology piece is key because, as you guys know, transportation technology continues to evolve. And we can't possibly see what that's going to be in 25 years, in 30 years, in 40 years. So built into this plan is funding that we know we are going to have to account for to help us keep up with the times. Driverless cars, how we deal with that, any kind of pieces that we all put together through our agencies that contribute to that. Apps and different ways to make moving around the county easy and convenient for people. And so all of these things together is what would be built into the benefits of this plan. Why now? Well, because Angelenos are stuck in traffic for an average of 81 hours a year. And if you stop and think about that, that's crazy, that's the amount of time that we get stuck in our car waiting as we're, missing out on getting home for dinner on time and going to a kid's soccer game, or, picking up your kids on time from daycare, or even just going home so you can chill and just enjoy the evening, right? So time is money. The longer that we wait to build out this program, the more expensive it's going to get. And the longer we wait, we are going to lose any benefits that we have derived in the past because of even more traffic congestion. So what we've been doing is the past few years working with our partners across the county, so the councils of government from all of the areas of the county, we have said to them, okay, we're going to work on this bottoms-up process. We want you to come to us and tell us what the transportation priorities are for your area. And so we gave each of those areas targets to shoot for, and they came back to us with priority projects, and the deadline for that was September 1st. So we took all of these projects and we categorized them, and we then went to our board of directors with a set of performance metrics for which to rank these projects. And so these are the performance metrics, or the themes that we evaluated those major projects against. How well does this project provide better access, ease congestion, improve safety, grow economic benefits, and enhance our sustainability and quality of life? And so these are numerical figures that are all figured into a very comprehensive model. And so we did that process. In tandem with that, we did updated cost estimates on these major projects, because a lot of these projects that we know have been priorities for years, the Pauletta Pass, the West Santa Ana Branch, the 710 South, all these various projects that have been on all of our collective radar for all these years, those cost estimates needed to be updated. So we did that process also as we were ranking the projects that the subregions came to us with. And then we came up with a plan of how we essentially spread this money out in various components of our plan moving forward. Now, you can't really read all of this, but this is the pie and how it essentially gets carved up in the areas that it's going to take for us to be multimodal. And just real quickly, what I will point out is this orange and kind of steel blue area. Those are the new transit and highway projects that the subregions came to us with. So about half of this pie is 17% going to new highway projects and 35% going to new transit projects. And then I'll talk you through each of the pieces of the pie, if you will. So that transit construction component, 35% that we're saying should go towards new rail, new bus rapid transit, rail yards and maintenance facilities, and rail cars, and buses for startup bus rapid transit and what have you. 35% of that $120 billion plan should go towards transit construction. Highway construction, about 17%. And this is everything related to enhancing our highway system, in relieving the traffic flow on highways and the various things that contribute to that. Regional active transportation. This is a new category from Measure R, because we realize beyond driving and taking buses and trains that there's more and more people biking that choose to do that, and a lot of people that prefer to walk places. And there's so much mobility that happens within somebody's core community that active transportation is an area that we believe we need to have a bucket of money to fund these things that improve the region. Okay, so these are regional active transportation projects, and so this being a new category, we're saying 2% would go towards that. So this is our map of our major transit and highway projects right now, what is already built or what is in process. Okay, so here's the snapshot of where we are right now with the 40-year plan that we are proposing. This is what we have an opportunity to achieve. The blue are the highway projects and the green are the transit projects. And this is way too small for you to read, but these are essentially the major projects and how those fan out across the county to provide us those major projects. Okay, so the Metro staff put together this 40-year plan. But we also said, hey, you know what? We want to look farther reaching. So we are going to look at a 45-year model. So we said, what happens if we model this plan out 45 years? What else can we get done? So we can do other projects, but it also allows us more bonding capacity. But we said, why stop there? We looked at a 50-year model and said, if we look at this plan over a 50-year time frame so that we can really have this infrastructure inheritance, if you will, to leave for our kids and grandkids, you know, why not look farther out? And that extra bonding capacity that we have to leverage for other funding could help us out and maybe even accelerate some projects. So we looked at that 50-year model. Transit operations, we're saying 20% of this plan should go towards Metro's bus operations and the municipal operators and everything that goes into supporting that. So 20% towards that. 16% what we call as local return, but it's essentially the investment back to the local communities, all 88 cities that have that investment coming back to them so that they can build out the projects in their communities that they believe are important. And there's a piece of that that can be active transportation at the local level. So bike and pedestrian pathways that would help at the local level. And then Metro rail operations, as our rail system builds at Metro, it costs more to operate and maintain that. And so that 5% that we're proposing would go towards supporting our growing rail system. State of good repair is another new category that we're proposing, and that's 2%. And this is to keep our system in good working condition. It's one thing to build out all these projects, but it's another thing to keep them in good working order so that they don't break down. And you may have heard in the press over the last month or so that Washington, D.C.'s metro system had to shut down for a whole day because they had to do inspections of their entire system for safety reasons, because their system is old, it's aging, and frankly, they're having some serious issues. And the transit industry as a whole has not done a very good job of planning funding to keep our system in good working order. We've failed miserably, actually, on that note. So we call this state of good repair, but it's funding to keep our system in good working order. So we're proposing 2% towards that. And then ADA paratransit services and the ability to keep fares affordable for the disabled, for seniors, and for students. That's another new category where we're proposing 2% that we dedicate to those types of services. And as our population ages, we have a lot of baby boomers, right? And as baby boomers age, that's going to be more and more people that are going to need these types of services and pass programs. And so that's what we're proposing there. The other thing, and you guys know this, but the federal government puts together these ADA guidelines and they mandate these requirements, but there's no federal funding that goes along with that. So where does this money come from? So this is one way that we're saying we can help meet that gap. And then regional rail, which really is MetroLink, we would be dedicating 1% to enhancing our MetroLink and inter-county commuter rail system. Taxpayer oversight is another big thing, and we've heard this loud and clear from the public. So we did a round of focus groups last September, and we heard several things throughout all of the focus groups. One of them was people are sick of being stuck in traffic, and we have to do something. We have to do something to work on this traffic congestion. The other thing is they wanted to know that Metro had a plan. They wanted to know how the money is being spent, and that there's some kind of oversight. That was a big deal for people. Now, we already do have taxpayer oversight mechanisms in place for our past sales tax initiatives. So we have committees of independent folks that oversee how we're spending the money to make sure that it's being spent as intended and spent as intended. And that would be the case with this new tax measure as well. So we heard that loud and clear from people. But we've also looked at some ways that we could potentially accelerate projects or improvements across the region. So what could we do to continue to pursue federal and state funding? Federal grants, federal loans, state cap and trade funds, local funding. Are there local partners out there that want to team up and find monies that they can compile to come to Metro and say, hey, you know what? We want this project done sooner rather than later, so we're willing to put this investment in to help leverage it to get this project done sooner. Public-private partnerships, that's become a big deal. There's always opportunities down the road. We can't say what those are yet, but as those emerge, we have an opportunity to see how those might be game changers, right? And it's all of us preparing for our transportation renaissance. And this is all of us as partners. This is Metro, this is LADOT, this is Caltrans, it's all the cities, the county, it's all of us together that are in this transportation renaissance. And you know, our CEO says that we are on the cusp of becoming the transportation capital of the world with this massive, aggressive plan. Salita mentioned this at the beginning, that we're putting forth. I mean, this is like off the charts for what anybody actually in the world is probably planning, right? So we're in this renaissance period. So we're saying, hey, if this does pass, how are we going to manage this program? So our staff is already putting together a program management plan. We are training our people, putting them through leadership programs to get us people ready so that we have folks in place ready to go on to that next level to help keep these projects moving forward. And then we're really big on capturing our lessons learned. What have we learned from the past? What have we learned from other agencies, other partner agencies across the county? And lessons learned are not just the bad things, right? Lessons learned are good things. They're the positive things that we've done that we would continue to repeat. There's also those things that did not go so well that we would not repeat again. So how would we maybe look to change some things? So many benefits. These are just some of them that we all would benefit from in terms of this ambitious plan to put forth, right? And then our staff recommendation that we put forth to our Metro Board of Directors last month is the 50-year plan. And it's the 50-year plan because it provides us an opportunity, like I said, to leverage more dollars and that capacity that it gives us. So we're going for it. And we said, yes, we were all on track for a 40-year plan. We've modeled that. It's all great. But guess what? We have an opportunity to think farther on. And so our proposal is this 50-year plan that we have taken out now to the public, and we are educating the public about and getting feedback through a number of different ways. These are just some of the ways that we're out there sharing the story. One of the other things that we are sharing with folks is that after the major portion of the program, so let's say after the 50-year time frame, 2067, continuing a 1/4 cent of the tax to keep the system in good working order. Because that 2% I talked about that would be dedicated to state of good repair, that's never going to be enough. So we're saying, you know, are people open to the value of us keeping a portion of that tax so that we can keep things in good working order as we move forward? So that's also part of what we're presenting. So that is all I have as prepared comments, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. Yes, ma'am.
Well, do you have to have a limit on the number of years that you have this increase in sales tax?
Yeah, so the 40-year plan, if the 40-year plan ends up being what the board of directors supports, and all of this is leading up to the board making a decision in June whether or not to put this tax measure on the November ballot, okay? So this is all leading up to June. And right now this is just a draft plan, and it will likely go through tweaks. So we've modeled the 40-year plan, which would take it to 2057. If the board chooses to go with our 50-year plan, that was our staff recommendation, that would go to 2067. And then if there's a component to reduce the tax and keep a portion of it for keeping the system in good working order, then that would carry on until the voters would so choose to end that. So we're looking at either a 40-year plan to 2057 or a 50-year plan that would go to 2067. Who else had a question? Yes?
What's your deadline for comments?
Our deadline for comments, good question, is we're shooting for May 20th because that'll give us time to synthesize all the comments and the input that we got, because our goal is to report that back to the Metro Board at the May board meeting, which is May 26th. So that's our goal, is to get everybody's feedback by then. Yes?
Is this essentially a half-cent sales tax?
Yes, it's a half-cent sales tax, but also continuing the current half-cent tax that was passed through Measure R. When it's set to expire in 2039, instead of that stopping, it would be continuing it to that same time frame, either 2057 or 2067. Yeah. Yes, sir.
And this is only LA County, right?
It's only LA County, so all LA County voters would be voting on this. And then, of course, we need the 2/3 majority to pass this. Oh, I'll give you guys a little tidbit. So we've been out doing public meetings, and so we have 10 public meetings planned, and we've done 5. And one of what we're doing in these public meetings, and that's the brochure that Patty gave to you guys, that's listing all of the meetings. There's 5 more to go. So we have stations set up for certain topic areas like rail, bus operations, state of good repair, ADA, all these different, the local return, local communities, so that it's broken out by stations so people can talk with our staff. Then we start the program and we show a short video that just kind of frames transportation in LA County. And then we do a prepared presentation. It's a little different than this. It's a little more high level than what we gave to you guys. And then we do an electronic polling during the meeting. So then we go around and give everybody a little clicker. There's not one up here, but the little clicker. And we have a series of 5 questions that we ask people. And they push the number on their little keypad that corresponds with their answer. And so we ask the question, they answer, and then it aggregates for the whole room and shows the results on the screen. And one of the questions we ask is, if the vote were today, would you vote for this tax? And encouraging to us that most everybody would vote for it. The first night, I did the meeting the first night, and 73%, actually it was 72% of the people said they would vote for it. And then another meeting there was 73%. Another meeting there was 76% said they'd vote for it, and then 70%. Last night we were up in the North County, and they voted a little bit of a lesser degree, but 65% said that they would vote for the tax. And so it's been very encouraging for us that people really get this, and they want to get out of where they are stuck in traffic this much. Now, do we think we're ever going to eliminate traffic? Absolutely not. Are we going to significantly reduce it? No way. But we do believe we can do something to ease traffic. And we heard that from the public when we did focus groups back in September that I mentioned. We tested some phraseology with them on, trying to get to the words from the people and how they want to talk about this. And so they told us, yeah, no, we're not going to ever eliminate traffic. We won't be able to significantly reduce it. And when we said, well, how do you feel about what we could do together? And they said, we could probably ease traffic. Yeah, we could believe that we could actually ease it. So our education program that perhaps you've seen out on billboards or in newspaper ads, or you've heard the spots on the radio, talk about Metro eases traffic and how we're doing that. That's because that came from the people. And, we have 1.4 million rides a day that we provide at Metro. And then the municipal operators add even more to that. And so on top of that, we have a tremendous amount of people moving around through bus and rail every day in this county. So that's easing traffic, because what if all those people were driving in a car by themselves? It would just further congest the roadways, right? So, as much as you get on a highway, you're going 10 miles an hour, it could be a whole lot worse. What we're saying is, what can we do together to ease that, but then also provide other transportation options? So, yes, you have a question?
Yeah, is it safe to say that when you say ease traffic, do you really mean reduce travel times and maybe provide more options with regard to travel choices.
Yes, absolutely. So the improvements that we would make to highways, for instance, interchange improvements, maybe more express lanes or more carpool lanes or whatever, all of these things together that contribute to options if someone wants to ride, in the express lane, if people want to pay a toll, if they want to carpool, if people choose to travel at different times of the day. It all contributes to easing traffic. And yet, are we going to ever go 60 all day long on the roadway? No. But maybe if you're stuck in traffic now going 10 miles an hour at 8 in the morning, maybe it'll be better and you'll be going 20 miles an hour at 8 in the morning. And that's a whole lot better than going 10. So we're never going to see it reduced to the point of major traffic speeds. But I do believe that together with the plan that we have, we will see an impact in a positive way on travel times, on options, the different ways that we can connect people, how we help people find that first last mile connection. And so much of how people travel is within their own area of their community. And I can't remember off the top of my head, it's something like, I want to say 50% of all travel trips happen within something like a 3-mile radius of people's home. And so how do we help people better make those first and last mile connections, right? Yes?
Yes, you were describing the breakdown by local category, local return, all the different percentages. Are those percentages built into the legislation, or would they be able to be modified by the Metro Board if the measure?
Us to do is that whatever we put forth, we have to have cost estimates, current cost estimates, and the schedule of how everything gets sequenced. So it doesn't tie anything to certain percentages of any piece of the program. It's really that we have to provide the cost estimates, and a schedule of how it would all sequence over the period of the program. That's a good question, yes.
The sub-region's wish list is going to be falling all over this fund.
So what we did was we took the sub-region's wish lists, and the first crack at it, we got back from folks, it amounted to like $273 million, a billion with a B, $273 billion in projects. And it was like 2,400 separate projects. Well, obviously, that wasn't going to work to fit the model. So we had to give financial targets back to each of the sub-regions based on either their employment or population, and gave them these targets that they then submitted transit and highway projects that they costed out to fit that target. And that's what is within the orange and the darkish blue sections. So that's where their priority projects fit in. However, some of them, like the Las Virgenes Malibu area, that didn't really have a major transit or highway project that they wanted to put forth. They had a series of improvements that they wanted to put forth. Theirs is a collection of certain improvements. And so that would be categorized in there as well. And then in addition to the new projects, there's a whole lot of other things that support bus and rail operations, active transportation, ADA, state of good repair, MetroLink, and those other areas. Other questions? Yes.
At first impression, I feel like the plan is really good to address existing conditions now. Like it's a really good plan to have had 50 years ago, so that the situation now would be completely different than what it is today. So with that, I'm wondering how is this plan, seeing how the breakdowns seem so stringent, how is this plan flexible, and how is the plan accounting for demographic shifts in the next couple of decades, technological advancements in the next couple of decades, and to what extent is this not tying us into something that was maybe timely, some years ago, but should be able to shift and morph and be flexible to what the future would be in the next 50 years?
That's That's a great comment. So there are certain particular financial commitments that we're saying we're making in this program, but there is flexibility built into it because, again, we can't possibly know what's going to come forth in 20 years, even 10 years. I mean, you know, even 5 years ago, Uber and Lyft were not like common, right? So now they are. And so what kind of partnerships do we need to forge with those kinds of companies, or Via, which is more of an on-demand bus service, or, you know, all these other things that really merge. So we do have a certain amount of flexibility to factor in what is it that we do now. And some of that is you're going to see built into the transit operations and the local returns piece. So at the local level, maybe a city thinks that, oh, these are the projects that, you know, we know we're going to need to do, but they don't know in 20 years. And so what kind of technology for better signalization or for better connections within a community do they need to account for that they can't say now, but they'll have funds that will grow over time to be able to help them do that. That also, though, can be, even though we have certain cost estimates and targets for projects in the new project areas, that doesn't mean that a project that we've identified, like let's just make this up and say the 710 South, which is all about helping the goods movement through the county, that maybe in 10 years, before that whole project is built out, there is some kind of a newfound way for truck movement through a corridor that, you know, maybe there are better zero emissions trucks that then suddenly, you know, we want to encourage travel through the county. And so all of these different technologies that will advance, you know, our plan will advance with that. So it's not so prescriptive that we don't have that flexibility to modify with the times, because you make a great point. Hey, this is all fine for now, but we should have been doing this 40 years ago, right? Or 20 years ago even. But again, this kind of is where we are now, saying we can either do something to plan for the future now, or we can do nothing. And if we do nothing, we can, you know, shoot for it again in 5 years or 10 years or whatever, but look how much farther behind the 8 ball we're going to be. So, are there other questions? And you guys are way more versed in what we're talking about here than most people. So I encourage you to weigh in. Go to one of our public meetings. Get online on Metro's website at metro.net/theplan and review the material, weigh in and submit comments. Next month, we're also going to do a round of telephone town hall meetings. And for those of you that don't know what that is, it's another way for us to engage with the public without people having to go to a physical public meeting. Because we're doing those now, but, you know, let's face it, who goes to the public meetings? Really a handful of people. We've had over 100, 40, 20, 30, but the telephone town hall meetings are like live large conference calls or like live large radio shows where from the comfort of your own home, you can participate in a meeting. So we're going to be doing 13 of these for each of our Metro Director districts, where we proactively call out like 30,000 phone numbers within that area, randomly selected through voter databases, voter registration databases, and we invite people to stay on the call with us. But we also have a call-in number so that if people wanted to call in and be on the line, they can. And so, I mean, literally, we can talk and engage with thousands of people at one time instead of, you know, just, I mean, we could never do that in having physical public meetings. So that's another thing I ask you to keep your ears and eyes open for, is the telephone town hall meetings that'll be coming up in May. Yes?
Have you been using social media, because that's like the younger generation?
Absolutely. Social media is a big part of what we're doing, and we've pushed out a lot of ways that Metro is easing traffic and pointing people back to the website, little video snippets. we're in the process right now of doing short videos with real people that ride transit and that care about transportation and how it impacts their lives, and those will be out on social media soon. And, you know, it's a key way that we reach people. In fact, this is the power of social media. So we did this really cool video, which I invite you to go on and see on Metro's website and on our Facebook and Twitter. We just pushed it out today, this morning. It's this really cool video about the Expo 2 extension and opening this project next month. And so we pushed that video out this morning, and within like some ridiculous amount of time, it was like literally 2 hours, we had like 15,000 hits on this video. And so you put stuff out there and people are out there watching it and sharing it, and it's